Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Spiral Base for Genshin Impact version 5.0. Yup, boom. Yup, so the blessing for this time is after the active character uses an elemental skill, normal attack and elemental skill damage is increased, and if it's in Night Soul's Blessing, the normal attack and elemental skill damage is increased even more. So this is good if you have characters like Mualani and Kinich. They perform pretty well here. Okay, so for 411, all party members gain a 60% Dendro and Hydro damage bonus, so I think it's pretty straightforward. Let's look at the monster list. So for the first half, I would avoid Electro, Anemo, and Geo because of the Spectres. And for the second half, I would avoid Hydro because the Mirror Maiden and the Consecrated Horned Crocodile have Hydro resistance. And for the first half, I would bring an Anemo CC unit to help group these enemies. Oh, and for the second half, I would bring single target DPS, so stuff like Arlecchino or Raiden, because there are fewer enemies in the second half. Yeah, so for some team suggestions, for the first half, you could bring like a Sucrose Taser team, something like this, or you could bring a Freeze team, something like this. Maybe you could swap out Hazel for like, I don't know, Charlotte or something. And for the second half, to bring Melt team like this. Right, so these are the teams that I'll be using for floor 11. For the first half, I'm using Nuvelet, and because I think he does well against a lot of enemies. And Kazuha is my Anemo CC. And for the second half, I'm using Arlecchino and Yelan, because both of them do very well for single target damage. And yeah, so let's move on to the battles, and I'll share more tips during them. For the first half, it's a monolith defense with netland enemies, and they will keep respawning every time you defeat one of them. And they'll rush towards the monolith, so it's pretty easy if you just stay around it. And if you bring an Anemo CC like Kazuha or Sucrose or Venti, it will speed things up by grouping them together. Okay, for the second half, there'll be 2 Ruin Guards, which will spawn one by one. So it's just a matter of taking them down quickly. For the first half of Chamber 2, Spectres spawn in waves of 3. So they will move towards you, but if you have an Anemo CC, it'll make grouping and defeating them much easier.
Remember, health comes first.
Let my name echo in song.
Settle down. The tides beckon.
After the Spectres, some fungi will spawn, and I would recommend going for the one that isn't flying. So the other 2 that are flying will fly towards you, which makes it easier to take all 3 of them down. And finally, there are 3 Yamkasaurs, and they will swing and jump towards you, so it's pretty easy to like take them down together. Okay, and for the second half, the first wave is the Mirror Maiden, so she'll teleport around, but since it's a solo enemy, it's easy to just chase her down. And for the second enemy, it's this crocodile thing. So I think one thing to take note is it will spawn like a little hydro thingy on the ground, and if you can break it by attacking it, it will actually stun the enemy. But for this clip, I managed to finish it off before it even triggered this ability. So for the first wave, it's these 3 netland enemies. I recommend targeting the ranged one in the middle first, because the other 2 melee enemies will move towards you. Right, and the second wave has some lava monsters. They'll move towards you, so no worries there. So they're always in the pyro state, so you can use reactions like vaporize or melt to handle them quickly. Okay, so for the second half, this enemy is one we faced in the story, and I think she's also a local legend. She does cryo and hydro attacks, so she can freeze you. And she also spawns something that deals AoE cryo damage, but you can break it by attacking it quickly.
Everlasting as the moon. Laid bare. Going in. Rain of bullets. Quietly now.
Okay, so for floor 12, let's take a quick look at the enemy list. So for the first half, these 2 are actually the local legend versions, and I'll share more details about them during the gameplay later. And I would recommend not bringing Dendro for the first half because of the Mountain King. He has Dendro resistance. I can't remember if the Jade Bloom Terrace Room has Dendro resistance as well, but yeah, so I wouldn't bring Dendro here. For the second half, I would not bring Hydro because of this veteran Tainted Water Spouting Phantasm. The Hydro wouldn't be very effective here. Yeah, so for the first half, you could bring like anything that's not Dendro. So like you can bring Arlecchino, you can bring Neuvillette, you can bring Navia, bring like, I guess, Ayaka as well. For the second half, anything that's not Hydro. So again, like Arlecchino or Raiden or Navia or some Dendro stuff. For the first half, I'm bringing Arlecchino because Pyro is very good against the Mountain King's ability, and also the Jade Bloom Terrace Room. And for the second half, I'm bringing Alhaitham in a Hyper Bloom setup. And the main reason I chose Alhaitham is because I haven't actually used him much yet. And I think it should be pretty good in the first stage. Okay, so I'll share more tips for each of the battles. And yeah, okay, so for Chamber 1, for the first half, there are 2 waves of enemies. So for the first wave are these samurai enemies. And so they're pretty simple. You can use Anemo CC to group them together, or if you don't have an Anemo CC here, you just run towards the wall and they'll dash towards you. Okay, so for the second wave, it's pretty tricky. Okay, so in the second wave, there are 2 of these Fatui enemies, but these aren't the usual ones. They are the local legend versions, which I didn't even know existed. So these 2 have special buffs when they die. So when the Pyro one dies, it increases the attack of the remaining ally, which is the Cryo one. And when the Cryo one dies, it drops a AoE Cryo field on the ground. So I would recommend defeating the Cryo one first, because it will be easier to just dodge and ignore the Cryo AoE field. So for the second half, there are 3 waves. So for the first wave is this ruin flying enemy. So usually you can use like a bow character to shoot down the wings, or you could also use like abilities that auto target, like Arena Summon or Hyper Bloom. Then the Dendro Course will automatic fly towards the enemy. And for the second wave, it's this Aramite enemy which summons Scorpion. Right, so there are 2 ways of defeating this. So one way is to take down the summon first, and that will stun the enemy, or just go straight for the enemy and ignore the summon, which is what I did in this clip. And for the third wave is this Hydro enemy, and there's no tricks to this. You just gotta beat it up straightforward. And I guess I think the note is it's always in Hydro state, so you can use reactions like Bloom or Freeze or Vape to take it down easier. So for the first wave are these fungus enemies again. And same as before, we go for the one that's not flying. So the other two flying ones will fly towards us and make it easy to group them together. For the second half is this terrace room, which we've taken down 1,000,000 times. So if you didn't know, it has 3 states. So one is the normal one. And the second state is one that you get by attacking with Electro. So it will continuously attack you until it gets exhausted and stuns itself. And the third one is like a burning kind of state. When you burn it. So for the burning state, you will try to like summon enemies, but it's not really a big deal because you can kind of stop this summoning process by using Pyro, which you would already be using to get him to this state. So that's why I think Pyro is pretty good against this enemy. Okay, and for the second half, there are 2 waves. So for the first wave is this Black Serpent Knight, and I don't think there's anything special about it. You just gotta like beat it up. Okay, so for the second wave, it's Magu Kenki, which we fought like a lot of times. So I don't think I have much to say about Magu Kenki. A trick that you can notice in my clip is that I use the elemental burst animations to dodge most of his attacks. Because if you don't dodge his attacks, they can sometimes do like a lot of damage. So I guess that's my tip for Magu Kenki. Okay, so for Chamber 3, for the first half, it's pretty interesting. So this is the new boss, the Yamkasaur, the Gluttonous Yamkasaur Mountain King. So it has Dendro resistance, that's why I recommended not to bring Dendro here. And it has 2 attacks. So one of it is like it spins around the ground. Yep. And the second attack is it will like spit fruit on the floor, and you can use Pyro to ignite the fruits. So 2 things can happen. One is if it eats the fruits, it will explode within itself and like stun him. Or if it doesn't eat the fruit, it will just blow up on the ground and like stun him. Yeah, and if it does manage to eat the fruit like that's not ignited, he will shoot a laser beam, and the damage for this laser beam scales with how many fruits he manages to eat. And the laser beam also leaves like a burning area on the ground, which I think does quite a lot of damage. I died to it once. For the second half, it's this robot perpetual mechanical array, which I think we also fought a lot of times. So if you didn't know, after it gets below a certain amount of health, it will spawn 4 robots, and one of the robots will have an indicator. So you need to defeat that one, and once that one dies, the main body will like come alive again, and you take it down one more time to defeat it. Yeah, and that's it for floor 12.
Grow, grow, grow. Rain outlines it. Stand with me. Commit it to memory. Rain cutter. This way, Trina.
Scatter.
Okay, so that wraps up my guide for Spiral Abyss floor 11 and 12. Found this abyss to be pretty easy, and took some feedback from the previous video and showed some 4-star suggestions as well. So let me know what characters you used, what themes you used, what are your thoughts on this Spiral Abyss, and any feedback you have for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.